how was going back to the last 4 days of the tournament, or the first 4 days, I guess? How did it treat you overall?
Like I said to you guys, thank goodness for those Sweet 16 futures that are available, because UConn, Texas, Gonzaga, that's where I made my money. And coming on here with you guys talking about VCU against St. Mary's, whose best player, A10 player of the year, got hurt during the game. That one fell apart. Memphis was one of my favorite plays in there. Felt like they should have had a great chance to win that game. That one fell apart. So game by game, there was certainly some struggle, but made up for it with the Sweet 16 futures.
Well, we'll have you on the show again tomorrow, and we'll touch on this because Bama plays tomorrow. But I love the bet that you made on them, on the price. You bet Bama minus 105 to make the Elite Eight. So one more win as a 7.5-point favorite, and they're going to get there. So let's begin with the games that we have tonight. UCLA and Gonzaga, just a phenomenal matchup here on paper. It's out here in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. I like the under in this game. I bet it at 146. I took it out under as well. The number this morning is UCLA minus 1.5. What do you make of that number as we sit here on the morning of the game?
Yeah, I bet UCLA early on the money line at minus 120, thinking it would grow, and it did. I think it touched minus 140 and got up to as high as 2.5 points. And now it's coming back. I thought it might come back. I thought there might be some money on the Zags game day because, a lot of the public pushback is that UCLA is dinged up. Gonzaga is looking better right now. They're a 3 seed. They don't have as much pressure on them, which I do agree with that aspect of the narrative. But for me, this is the point in the tournament where you bet those balanced teams. We always talk about the Ken Palm teams that rank highly in offensive and defensive adjusted efficiency. And UCLA is one of those teams, and they've maintained being one of those teams, even with some guys dinged up. So I think that UCLA is going to control the pace of the game. I do like your under for that reason, Mitch. I think it's going to be a UCLA style game, and Mick Cronin will have some kind of game plan to slow down the Gonzaga offense. So if they're going to do that, UCLA is going to dominate on defense, and UCLA is good enough on offense to get by against that Zags defense that ranks 75th and score enough points to win this game. It's not by any means going to be a blowout. But awesome atmosphere, obviously, in Vegas. I'm jealous you guys are out there. Great fan bases at this game, but I think UCLA is going to have enough to prevail because of the balance they have.
Can you tell our audience again about the incredible menu on these props, points, rebounds, assists, winning margin, 7-way, 12-way, and one prop you like in the UCLA game?
Yeah, and any way you want, essentially. If you want to bet a game, it's going to be on there on DK Sportsbook. All the tournament props essentially reset now that we're on to 16 teams. So you can go back in and bet prices on whatever the buzzer beaters, whatever it may be. And then player props, points, rebounds, assists, player combos. So for me in UCLA, I am going to go with Armani Bailey. This one moved up from 13.5 to 14.5. I'll lay the minus 105 on Armani Bailey over 14.5 points. I know I said I thought it would be a little bit slower of a game, but I think that Bailey's going to have a very big role for UCLA. Jaquez is going to have to, match True Timmy in this game for UCLA to win, but Bailey's going to be that next guy. So since Jalen Clark went down, the guy that gives a lot of people concern as to why they don't want to back UCLA in this game, Bailey's played 5 games, all tournament games, either Pac-12 tournament games or NCAA tournament games, and he's averaging 17 a game. He's 3-2 to the over in those games. It was 14 last game against Northwestern, but that was a grinded out game, 68-63. And he only took 7 shots in that game. You got 17 against UNC Asheville in there in the first round. You got a 19 in there against Arizona and 26 against Colorado. So he's taken 12 to 14 shots in a lot of these games. And I think against a poor Gonzaga defense, I would compare it more to that Arizona team. I think Arizona is a good comp to Gonzaga. And Bailey went 8 for 14 from the field, got a couple free throws off and scored 19 in that game. I'm expecting a pretty similar game from him in this matchup.
Okay, very good. It's Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Julian Edlow, our guest with DraftKings. His podcast is called Unreasonable Odds. The other game that out here in this regional is UConn against Arkansas, and now Connecticut laying 4.5 points in this game. Again, you go back to the weekend matchup, Arkansas-Kansas, the Jayhawks, the defending champs, and the 1 seed. Jayhawks close 3.5. So here you have the 4 seed now laying 1 full point more than what Kansas was laying, but you still like the Huskies. Tell us why.
Yeah, these are two of my teams right here. UConn to reach the Sweet 16 was my biggest bet of the tournament, and I had Arkansas with the 3.5 and on the money line on Saturday. I'm a big fan of this Arkansas team. They're well coached. They always make runs in March. The backcourt, they got 2 big freshman guards that are both looking like lottery picks. That said, they can't shoot from the outside, and their offense can lack at times. They're going to give all the defensive effort for sure, but if they're not knocking down jump shots, it's hard to replicate what they did against Kansas. And UConn is just bigger and tougher than Kansas in my mind. So UConn grades out a lot like UCLA, one of those balanced teams in terms of KenPom offensive and defensive efficiency. I think that gap, what UConn can do on offense versus Arkansas, if there's one of those, 12-2 runs in this game, I think that's ultimately going to be the difference in this game. So I laid 3.5 and put them in some small money line parlays. 4.5 is tough in a game like this. The way I'm looking at these teams like UConn and Texas, if you like Texas on Friday night, I have a hard time saying not to just parlay them with Creighton on the money line versus laying 4.5. I think it's over with Princeton. I think Creighton's an awful matchup for them, and I know we'll talk about this more tomorrow. This is a Friday game, but if you want a money line parlay UConn and not need them to win by 5 points in a game this big against a team that's as scrappy as Arkansas, I would just money line parlay them with Creighton because they're playing so well, and I can't imagine Princeton's going to keep up in a game like this.
Okay, what do you think of the game to start the day in New York with K-State and Sparty, and the favorite is flipped in this one?
Yeah, so I haven't bet this one. I would say now with K-State as the dog, that's where I would lean. It was at 2. I was hoping maybe it would grow to 3. Now it's coming back the other way, as you'd kind of expect, given how much it moved off the opener. This is a tough game. Izzo in March. He's got his guys playing well. But K-State is so scrappy. Marquise Noel, a couple of NYC point guards actually going at it at MSG. That's going to be pretty cool. Noel playing so well for them right now. Keontae Johnson playing so well. There's a special vibe around this K-State team. So I think that when I'm in doubt, I kind of lean towards the Big 12 in this game because those teams were just so battle-tested every game during the regular season. But again, as of now, this is just a lean for me. I haven't gotten in on this game because I think it's so tight.
Okay, the other game then in that regional, Tennessee and Florida Atlantic. This did touch 6 for a couple seconds anyway, at least, before it came all the way back down to now where it's at. Tennessee's lane 5 right now at DraftKings. Total is 129.5. I haven't heard too many people make the case for the Volunteers. Is that the path that you want to go down here?
Yeah, again, I haven't bet this one. I would lay with Tennessee. I think somehow now we're at a contrarian, lay some points with Tennessee here against a 9 seed in the Sweet 16. So if I can get that, I don't think it's the worst idea. Tennessee proved a lot against Duke to me, going out there without Ziegler and getting physical and winning a game like that. But this is a completely different matchup. That was, almost like an NBA game in terms of the size on the floor. This is more of a game that FAU is going to try and pace up, I would imagine, because that's how they win games. And what does Tennessee do? They rank very highly in defensive efficiency, and they slow these games down. So I would be surprised if I wind up playing anything pre-flop here. If Tennessee's minus 4.5, that would be very tempting to me, and I'll have to take a look at it. But I think this is probably a game that you want to look to bet live in-game because once it gets going, we're going to see what the pace of this game is and how FAU is defending against the size and how Tennessee is defending against the pace of the Owls. So this feels more to me like a game that we see how it gets going and see whose type of game it is and then look to get in live, whether that's a side or a total. Because if it's going FAU's way, then you're probably looking at an over. If it's going Tennessee's way, you're probably looking at an under. So I think that there's a few live betting angles in this one that could come into play. I just want to see a little bit of the game before I get invested.
Great spot today, Julian. By the way, I saw you on over the weekend with Matt Kalish, who is the co-founder of DraftKings, everybody's owner here at DK and on VSiN, right? Everybody's boss. Great job, man. That event, the opening event there in Massachusetts, looked like it was a ball to be at.
I will tell you, Banners Kitchen and Tap, it's like literally attached to the TD Garden where the Celtics and Bruins play. That is essentially a sports book now. It has like a circa type wall in there, and now with mobile betting live in Massachusetts, if you want to go to a sports book type atmosphere in Boston, that's the place to be.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.